Hello everyone, it is Christine here and I have a project for you that allows you to use your small scraps and to make a collage piece, and then I'm going to be showing you an idea where you can cut out pieces from your collaged piece and turn them into lovely little shapes. I'll be showing you how you can then turn that into a piece of sort of hanging down bunting. So the idea is the little rabbits would be hanging down the piece, but it's going to be equally applicable to other shapes like a heart for Valentine's Day. So multiple purposes. And then because we're going to be left with a piece of this collage base fabric that has some rabbits cut out of it, we're going to be careful when we cut the rabbits out that we've still left the piece of fabric intact. And in another video, I will show you how you can then turn that into a fabric container. So stay tuned because it's going to be making sure that all our scraps get loved and used and turned into some really beautiful little items that you can use to decorate your house or gift to your friends. And equally, if you didn't want to make the bunting, these would make a really sweet like little brooch, a clip. I might even make one of these for myself as a clip as well. So what you will need is some scraps of fabric, and ideally do this project when you've been working on something and you've got some scraps left on your table, because often they'll be beautifully color coordinated. These scraps for me came from when I was doing my fabric weaving, and I'll link to the video where I showed this one using these beautiful neutrals. And as you can see, the pieces that are in here are directly from the ones that I used in this piece. And then even with the shorter pieces I had from that fabric weaving, I made this very sweet little fabric woven pouch. And so I'll link to that video as well. And then I just had all these little trimmed off bits from the very ends of the small pouch left on my table, and I thought, why not turn it into something? I also had some of the backing blanket or tablecloth that I had used, and so I used that as the base. I didn't even worry that it's sort of slightly higgledy-piggledy. It's not going to be a problem. This is a slow stitch project, and any higgledy-pigglediness just adds to the beauty. So first up, I'll just give you a little demo. It's pretty straightforward, but always good to demonstrate in case you're not feeling confident to do it. I always want people to go into this going, yep, I've got that, I can do that. So I'm just going to grab another piece slightly larger, which I'd probably use if I'm going to do my hearts because they're just a little bit bigger. And we'll just collage the end of it. I probably won't do all of it with you, but I just thought I'd show you the method. So what I usually do is get my scraps, and I've just grabbed these out of my smaller scraps bin, which I haven't yet sort of pinned onto cards. They're probably a bit smaller than the medium scraps that I have sitting in my sorted, sorry, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but my sorted medium fabric pieces on cards, which now sit in binders on the shelf next to me, which makes them really easy to access. And so you can, I'd probably, with a piece this size, for example, I might cut that into maybe 3 pieces, and then I'll repeat those over the length of the fabric. And with the U-hoogle, you just want enough that you're probably holding down the sort of the edges of it. It'll just come and help when we're cutting out. And so with something like this, I'd be inclined to put them sort of spread and put them in different directions as I put them on the piece, and then move down and add them in. Actually, I'll put it sort of middle. So just trying to get them sort of in different positions if you're using the same fabric and spreading them down the piece. Again, with something like this, I might do a bigger piece than a smaller piece. But yeah, I usually start with my sort of bigger pieces and get them on first, and then I'll add some smaller detailing pieces. But really, there's no rules, just kind of do what pleases your eye. And as I say, you can pick a colour family if you wanted to stick with all the neutrals like I did on the other one, although that does have a few other little like florals and slightly brighter pieces in it. This one's an old cuff off an Indian block printed piece. So I'm actually wondering, will I take it apart, or probably can, and then I get 2 pieces for the price of 1. And again, these edging bits, they just give it that lovely vintage look. That's what I like it. But if you like really sharp edges, again, that's allowable. I'm never going to tell you there's things you can and can't do, because I think that takes the joy out of crafting. So I do sometimes, I might frown a bit when I feel like I'm kind of, watching a video and someone's kind of, telling you what you can and can't do, because that's not my vibe. Not my vibe at all. Encourage, inspire, but more just, make crafting approachable and friendly and encouraging for folks is what I'm about. So that everyone can enjoy the benefits of sitting down with some fabric and really, really enjoying it. So I don't want anything too dark, but because this one has some nice greys as well, and then this nice little motif, I'm not too fussed about it. And you can cut off, if endy bits like that one, those endy bits were bothering me, I just cut them off as I go. And I'll just make a nice frayed edge on this one. You might think this one's so similar to the sort of the white in the background, but sometimes it's nice just to have that little bit of neutral, and it's probably going to work quite well, I think, near this darker piece. This is another piece that's got a little bit of edgy sewing on it, but I don't think I mind that. And don't worry if it's a bit creased. Often when you stick it down, that kind of solves the problem of the creasing. Might save that one to the end because that's got lovely little hearts, and so that will be nice if I do decide to use this for my little Valentine's Day idea. So again, that's a more neutrally sort of colour, so I might put it over here. Again, it's sort of blending in with the background, but that's okay. And then I'll take a nice pop of colour. And so this is going to be quite bright and multicoloured, but I just thought that might be fun for the hearts. I'm not a big one for the sort of the commercial version of Valentine's Day, but I think it's a nice time to just make some nice little homemade from the heart. Oops, I might probably find it easier to not do it in the air. There's a bit of thread trying to get trapped in it. I'll just pull that off with I do have my wet face washer here, so I can wipe my fingers on that, which is handy. Probably shouldn't have put it on the the handle of the camera stand. Might need to move that actually, just so I'm not knocking you every time I go to use my face washer. That way you don't need to use disposable wipes. And again, this might be a good one to use when I've got a few more laid down, because it's a special piece. Can probably use a bit of a stripe here. I'll cut it into pieces, share it around. And again, if you kind of do spread it around the piece, it just helps to unify the piece as well when there's a bit of repeating of elements. Put that down there. So I won't do too much of this with you. I just wanted to kind of show you the approach, but I'll probably just show you when we start to add some smaller pieces or some more of the sort of embellishing pieces. So where will I put that? Maybe I'll put that over here. So I can probably put that one down. Oops. Just wipe my fingers again. Then what do we want as a little complement down here? No, that's a bit too bright. Probably too blue. Is that going to compete? Feel like I need something, oh, maybe spots. Yeah, I think that could work. Probably we'll still need to put one in the middle, but that's okay. Oops. Stripes and spots. And then, yeah, maybe, what have I got there? I've actually just got a little flower. Would we want to, yeah, let's put that on. So that's more of a little embellishing one. I probably fussy cut out at some point for some purpose, but didn't end up using. You can even use, these are just some little scraps of like woolen samples from the reverse art truck, which get sort of, yeah, sample fabric swatches. And I thought they could even be good to use, and just showing you the different types of things you can add to your piece. Maybe I'll add that here, or maybe I'll actually cut it into two. Again, that will help to unify the piece, particularly because this is a bit of a different texture than what I've got elsewhere. Yeah, that's much better as just a small piece. And then I'll put my other piece down here. And I don't think that little cuff that's on it is a problem, so I'll just, yep, leave that in the mix. What else? We've already got that one. I've already got a bit of flower action. So maybe just maybe just a bit of pink, just a plain pink. Quite an old fabric. I think I actually recognise this as one I got from the sort of 90-year-old lady that was giving up quilting, and so I got a lovely box of her bits and pieces. I do love this this silk fabric. I do think I probably, or will I keep it whole on that end? I think it does look rather nice there. Although we don't have that much floral down here, do we? So maybe I do need to add some of it. So maybe I'll take a segment. Maybe this one can go into there, or into here. And that one can maybe go up there. Sorry, you probably can't see right at this end, so let me move it along a smidge. Yeah, I think I might put it there. I know probably pink and sort of red have a bit of a clash, but sometimes I don't mind that. Okay, and then we've got more neutrally, or we can have I think we can have a bit more stripe over here now. Probably need something there, but what I was going to show you was also how you can add like little embroidery pieces. So any of those other little things, I often keep a jar of these sorts of like little offcuts by my sewing area, just so I can kind of reach for them and add them, and they just add a lovely little effect. I've got another scrappy bit of like this, so again you could just look at where do you want to kind of just add a bit more interest. So I could add it, for example, where would I like it? Maybe even where I've got the white underneath there, I could just have it sort of sitting off from the white, or I could have it coming down, although then I'll obscure part of my, although I could actually, yeah, just cut it, so I could have it. In fact, I've got that area up there where I still need to cover, but that's going to be too much white, I think. So we might have a look down here and just cut a little piece of it. Let's do that. And maybe we'd put it somewhere like here. And do we want to use this? Maybe we'll make two pieces, make a nice little triangle piece and another little square piece, squarish. And again, you might even want to just add another little bit of interesting texture, although that's now looking a little bit like it's too much in line with that. So actually, and we've got that there, so I might move it over to, actually could go up there and have the base fabric peeking through, which is fine, although it could even look better. Could look better over here, although I don't have anything under there yet, do I? Probably need to lay something down actually over here first. And I keep saying I'm not going to complete this whole piece in front of you, but it seems I kind of do. It's like you start something like this and it just keeps wanting to give, doesn't it? Could use, just having a look what else I've got. Oh, I've got this nice little one too. And we don't have as much of the pinky colours over here. Probably don't want to exactly emulate the other. It would have been too much sort of all the same sort of edges ending at the same places, so that's why I just kind of wanted to do this slightly different. And then which one do we want to use? Maybe I'll even use, because it's sometimes nice to have things on a different angle as well. Or to put something like that. Is that enough of a contrast, or do we put it across here? Quite like that, with that little, almost like a little arrow or something. Like that. And put this one maybe over here. Well, that might be a bit close actually. I still feel like maybe, let's actually put it up here. I think that will go nicely. Even though it's got that and that there, I think that's still good. And I'll be adding more anyway as we go. So that's probably enough to demonstrate, but yeah, also you could add things along the way like parts or full circles, etc. So really lots of options, but just giving you a bit of a look at how that looks. Ultimately, yeah, I'll be covering all the way to the end, and that will then become another piece of fabric that we can use for the same sort of concept that I'm showing you. And I will definitely add in these lovely little hearty pieces, sort of so that they're prominent on the piece as well. But you can cut as you start to add to these, where you've got the sort of the larger pieces, you can start to use some smaller pieces, almost like little bits of tape. So just look at where you can kind of cut the angles, or if you've got a weird edge that you're not comfortable with, is sometimes just putting a piece over there or a piece down like that. So just play around and see what's pleasing to your eye. So next step, once you've got your piece of collaged fabric, is to work out what shape you want to cut out some shapes for. So whether it's for a brooch, or in my case making some bunting that will hang down on a piece of my Nana's rickrack. And I want to do a rabbit. So I've previously had a vintage cutout. Now where has it gone on my desk? It might have disappeared in the process. Oh no, there it is. So I've had this from Purveyor of Reclaimed Textiles, which is a vintage piece of quilt that was cut out in the shape of a rabbit. And I thought, yeah, that's really sweet, but I didn't want to make one identical because I don't know if this is someone's sort of design. I assume it's like from one of those cutter machines. So I just drew around it, but then drew a smaller version of it. This was my first cut of the smaller version, but then I decided I wanted to go even smaller, and so this is my second one. So you can see I kind of, just kept drawing till I had a shape I wanted, and then I cut it out. So this is a fair bit smaller than that one. And what I want to do, I think, is cut out. We need to work out how many bunnies we can cut out of this. And so I want to have enough room that it will still be joined at the top and the bottom. Well, not joined because we're going to cut into it, but essentially because I want to use this piece of fabric for another project once we've cut out the bunnies, which I will show you in a future video. I want to keep enough of the fabric to hold together even once the bunnies have been cut out, and I'll be putting another fabric behind it, which again will reinforce it. But don't worry, we'll cover all of that. So I want to do 1 bunny, 2 bunnies, 3 bunnies. So yeah, I think I'll fit 4 bunnies across the length of it. So what I'll start by doing is folding my fabric into quarters, so I know what my sort of zone is for drawing. First of all, drawing on the bunnies and then cutting them out. So that's created enough of a place, I think, where I can see the fold marks. I might just make those ones a tiny bit more pronounced. And let's just make the other ones a tiny bit more pronounced. I can kind of check it as I go along as well. But I'll just try and give it a bit more of a permanent crease. So that's our first little area in here. So I will put my little bunny shape, work out which way you want your bunnies to go, or you might want them, I'm just going to have them all pointing in this direction. And then I'm going to get my friction marker, which erases with heat. And it's fine because I'm going to be cutting anyway. You could do it on the back if you wanted as well, but I'm not too worried because I'm also going to be adding stitching to my bunny. But I do know that unless you've got a really dark fabric or something, the friction marker comes out quite well. And I don't even mind if it leaves a slight sort of browniness or something. Some people, get that issue over time with friction markers. But I'm not too fussed. It's just going to then look like a bit of a shadow or something, which isn't a problem. But this is essentially the line that we're going to be cutting around. So that's the first of our bunnies. I might just need to just make sure I got dark enough where the pen just doesn't look like it's come out quite well enough down here. But I can kind of see where it is. So then my second area was over here, wasn't it? Yes. So that's going to be a nice amount of spacing. So again, we'll just repeat that process. Oops, drawing on my template, but that's okay. It's kind of nice when you use a template over time and you see all your lines, if you've used different colours for the pen over time, and you'll think, oh yeah, I used that template for that project, for the other project. So you might think it's way too early to be making sort of bunny decorations, if Easter decorations. They don't have to be for Easter. I've always loved this bunny motif anyway. But I think Easter is going to come racing around, and I've got my nephew coming over, so I thought this the second project I make with this strip might be something I give to him as part of his Easter presents. So I'll definitely be buying. Alex and I don't tend to go in too much for the Easter eggs, but when you've got kids around, even if they're teenagers, it's going to be fun to get some Easter treats. And I thought they could go in my next project, which will make a lovely little container baskety sort of thing. But I love the idea that we're going to not be wasting this lovely collaged fabric. We're not going to just cut out the bunnies, but we're going to put it to good use for a further project. It pleases my non-waste mind. And because it is using those smaller scraps you have left when you finish a project, which we often end up with a lot of them because we're always sort of trimming bits off. I don't think that will be too much of a problem, having that little tufty bit, because that will just sort of sit on the edge of bunny over there. And then where was this edge? And again, doesn't have to be precise, does it? But just helps to kind of know what you're targeting to. So thereabouts. So I'll put bunny over here. I may have put that bunny a bit further over, but I don't think that will be a problem in the big scheme of things. I can just put this one even a little bit over. are they? They're about 2 fingers worth. That's not too bad actually. So we'll pop him about there. So we're going to have a very hot Monday. I'm filming this on Friday night before a long weekend here in Australia. We've got a public holiday on Monday. So there we go. That is our bunnies drawn in place. So now we want to get some good sharp scissors. I sometimes like using my big scissors, but I've also got these lovely fleur scissors. And I'm going to just cut carefully in from the side, but ultimately we're going to be bringing the pieces back together. And I'm going to make sure I just cut carefully around the outside of the bunny without cutting more of the fabric off than is the bunny, because we want to keep our background piece of fabric cohesive, if that makes sense. You'll see what I mean in a moment. And that's why you wouldn't want to draw right up to the edge, because otherwise you'd be cutting right through your piece, and you want it to sort of stay together. I mean, you could always stitch it back together, but this will work better. So I won't make you tediously watch me cut out all the bunnies. I just want to get one cut out and then show you what we're going to do with it to add some beautiful slow stitching detail. I think it's going to have a really interesting, lovely sort of, quilty, patchworky look to it, like an old piece of quilt, which I think is going to be super. It's the look I was kind of going for. So yeah, use whatever scissors you think you can best work with that's going to give you a nice sort of clean, easy cut. So as you can see, what you're going to be left with is a piece that has been cut. I'm trying to see how this it goes back together like that. And you can already get an idea of what we're going to be doing on this next project, which will be using this piece when I talk about we're going to be putting a backing behind it, and then we're going to be turning it into a round container. But I will save that for another video, but at least you can see what you want to achieve. So you want to still have it joined at the top and the bottom, and granted you'll have one little cut bit on each of the pieces as you come into it. You can even, you could cut from the top piece or the bottom, wherever you want. And if it was getting too floppy, what you can do as a very quick fix is you can actually put a piece of fabric over it. Let me just show you this, and stick it down if you don't want it to kind of risk getting damaged as you cut out your other pieces. So just like this, we're just going to grab a neutrals colour, because that's the colour scheme I've got for this one, and we're just going to put that over that little cut area, and that will just behave like a little band-aid, but it then becomes part of our pattern as well. And if I want to put it under the other piece, I'll just show you how easily the Yoo-hoo glue actually comes up. So I can actually peel that other piece up. I can get this nicely lined up like that, and then I can actually, oops, if I don't roll my Yoo-hoo glue around, really making a mess of it, aren't I? We'll get there. So let's reline it up again, stick our little piece down, stick our green piece over the top of it, and there we go. Oops, and I just stuck it to my hand again. So yeah, that way you can just add a piece of coordinating fabric as you go, but yeah, it'd be absolutely fine not to do that as well. So you'll proceed to do that right down the piece, cutting around all your shapes, but leaving the piece whole. and then save that for our next project. But for then these lovely little pieces, which are the cutout pieces, as you can see, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pieces of fabric. You might want to check, like this little nose piece doesn't have that much attaching to it, so I'm just going to give it a quick little bit of glue just to help hold it in place. But we are going to be stitching into this, which we're going to do now, because we've got about half an hour, which is great. We can do some quality stitching time together just to add some lovely details. Now I'm thinking I might want to use a relatively fine needle, and I am just giving my fingers a nice little clean. Although I'm going to be, I think I'll use my my crochet, vintage crochet cotton, which is again in the nice neutral tones, because I think because the rickrack's going to be nice and bright, it'd be good to keep the bunnies a bit more neutral. I was toying with the idea of using like a bright green, but I just think that might take away from the beautiful neutrals. Do we want to do maybe a blanket stitch around the outside? I was thinking. Start that off. Always get a bit puzzled when I'm starting blanket stitch whether I'm going to get it going the right way. I think that's right. So I'm coming in just slightly from the margin, just so I can do just a smallish blanket stitch. So I'm coming up just, part way inserted in, and then putting the thread over my needle and then pulling it, and that's just going to give me a nice little stitch along the edge as I go along. Hopefully it's not too small for you to see. It is hard when you're doing these slightly more miniature projects. So lovely seeing Annie with her beautiful new filming setup. I don't think I'd want to see myself as you know, I don't even put my face on camera. You see a bit of the odd face of me with Travis splashing around in the water at the beach or something when I share a video. But yeah, generally I'm stitching with no makeup on, often with my hair looking a bit dishevelled. As my friends Christy and Sally, who I video chat with periodically, they will attest to, I'm usually looking a bit dishevelled, particularly in summer. Usually got the hair up on my head and like a clip and summer dress on. I do enjoy our little weekend chat that we try and have. So nice to hear about everyone's creative adventures. We just have to time it so it works for Western Australia and the United Kingdom and Melbourne. I wish there was more time frames that actually, or time sort of points in the day, well, particularly the evening for me, because that's when I'm free to do my stitching and creating. But always sad to miss Annie Claxton's work in progress Whip Wednesdays. But I do always watch them back and enjoy sort of rereading the chat. So yeah, I'm going to just work around the outside, and blanket stitch is it's used on the edges of blankets because it provides a really good sort of securing to the edges, but it's also a really decorative stitch, which I guess also why it's used on the edge of blankets. And in fact, Sally from Dotty B Vintage, she's been doing her What is Slow Stitch series and showed blanket stitch, but showed a whole lot of different ways to use it and do it. So definitely head on and check that out. And Sally has some workshops coming up, which I think I don't know for sure, the places might have sold out, but head on over if you're in the UK, obviously, Kirsty and I would love to be there, but alas, we are in Australia and Sally's in the UK. I just think I missed a stitch there, so I'm just going to put another one in. we would so adore to be at Sally's workshop and supporting her. But I figure I can support her by letting folks in the UK know about it, and hopefully if it's something that appeals to you, you might be able to head along. It's funny having friends that you feel really, close to and attached to that you've never met in person. But there's so many people that I've met through this that, you really come to know each other, don't you? And it's so nice to have a tribe. So it's not the fastest stitch blanket stitch, but I do think it's going to give nice detailing. And once we've kind of done that, we can work out, does it need anything else sort of slow stitchy wise? And I guess you can do different things. You could do a whip stitch on the edge of some of them. I do think it is a good idea to do some sort of, you could just do a running stitch around the edge, but again, just judge where your fabrics are. So what else to tell you? I can't think. Oh, I made, you would have seen I'd made that beautiful little pouch using a vintage apron. So I've got so many vintage aprons. I might need to make some more because I do think they'd be nice little, giveaway gifts as well. So I might actually let Annie know that one of those can be a giveaway for her next Saturday night in. Probably I'll do one of those for Australia, but then I've got another idea that could be a worldwide one. So it's just so nice that we do get to discover each other, because otherwise, we could all be sitting in our craft rooms unconnected if it weren't for this medium and the sort of, the communities that we have around it. It's quite amazing. And you kind of think of those generations that came before us. Sorry, I've got a bit of a tangle, but I'm sure I'll be able to get it untangled. The generations that came before us where, they didn't have this opportunity. What have I done there? I think I just bodged something, so I'm just going to put another stitch in here. Oops. What have we got going on? We've got some knottage happening. We'll try and work out why it's knotting. Okay, and then let's just come down here and over here. That's a good thing about blanket, even if on something like this where you're using neutral colours, even if you bodgy it up, you can fix it. Or you can always backtrack and work out what you've done, but that's probably a bit tedious for you to watch, so I just do the fix. Again, feel free to fast forward through if you're not needing to, if you're bored of watching the blanket stitch, although I'm sure many of you are either relaxing, maybe with a cup of tea, or ideally doing some of your own stitching. Maybe thinking about what shape would you want to do for your piece. Or maybe you've paused the video, you've gone off and got your fabrics, you've collaged them while I was collaging, and you've made your little shaped cutout. And with the heart, I actually just drew that first on paper, folded over paper, and then cut it to the shape I wanted, because if you fold a piece of fake paper in half, where's this piece of card, fold it in half and then drew and cut around, you get a nice even heart shape. Whereas for the bunny, I did just draw that freehand. But you can also find outline drawings on the internet, like free downloads of outline drawings too. So that's another option. You could print something out and use that as your template. Stick it maybe to a piece of like cereal box card, and then you can use that to cut or to draw around. Because the paper's a bit hard, if you try and draw around that, the pen will move around a bit too much. So I think it does help with this also. I'm glad I used this kind of tablecloth, or a piece of blanket would be great, or a piece of felt, because it'll give you a nice secure sort of not particularly fraying background. Whereas if you had a bit of fray just fabric, that might not work as well. So that's just a tip. Always interesting to learn. Got to keep learning. That's why I love this sort of, experimenting and creating and coming up with ideas. That's why I'm not so much, follow a pattern. I mean, you absolutely still learn through pattern and through, following other people's instructions. But I find I learn by experimenting, learn by doing, learn by actually the sort of the tactile process involved in, not having something sort of pre-prepared for you, but having to work with different materials and learn about materials by using them. And I'll just get this stitch done, and then we can switcheroo to the next bit of thread. So I'll just very carefully, well, not very carefully, but very sort of subtly anchor that off and put a couple of stitches just into the backing piece. And then I can hopefully sort of just secrete the end inside between the two pieces, so it's not coming through to the front, not coming through to the back, and then I can hopefully not get my tail caught in it, nope, and then just pull it a tiny bit tighter and it will just sort of spring back into the fabric. And that's pretty neat. And that's the other thing I should have mentioned, like I'm really happy to have this on the back of it. In fact, I even love that I've got the two different colours. Almost looks like my bunny's wearing a pair of pants. Very cute. But yeah, you could always put a different backing fabric on it if you didn't want to use your sort of blanket piece, like even just have a solid colour across the back of it that you'd put on before you do this stitching, obviously, and before you cut your piece out. So that's just something to think about. But really, because this is going to be hanging down, it's not going to be swinging around. And I'm happy with the colours. The colours go nicely with the neutrals. But really pleased with how the blanket stitching is looking, I think. So again, I can just put my little endy piece in here. With my little knot, I can cut off the end of my knot so that just sits in there. And then we will continue on. Oops, we'll try not to catch our thread around the entire rabbit and around the rabbit ears. It's probably going to be the challenge as we make our way up here when you're busy. So now that I've got to the end and finished, I will just tie it off, put a knot or two in, and then secrete the thread into the fabric again. I might not chop it off at this point because I'll need to have a think whether I'm going to want to put like a little eye or something on. Could be cute with an eye, but I kind of also like it just in its more rustic form. But it is also a chance to think whether you want to do any other stitching, like you could do some stitching sort of just slightly inset from it, like a running stitch around it. I may do that, or you could do some cantha stitching cross, or you could do some like diagonal stitches almost like it's patchworked. That could be quite cute as well. Okay, so I am back having finished stitching with blanket stitch around the outside of all of my 4 bunnies. And what I wanted to show you was how I have added additional detail, almost like they're quilted at different angles. So across ways on this one and across that way on that one. I'm hoping you can see. I'm filming it with the blinds closed and the lights on because it's hot sun coming in the window. And so I've just done that same stitching with the crochet thread, the vintage crochet thread that I've been using for the outside. And I thought I'd show you how I do it on this 4th one, which I think I'm going to make into a brooch by just adding one of these little brooch clips to the back. And I think I'll probably do some extra embroidery because it's got a nice little white area on it as well. So I thought I could do some nice little lazy daisy flowers or something on it. I probably won't get all of that done in this video, but I might show you in the next video where we then come to do the container using the outside of our, which now has bits and pieces stuck to it, but the outside of our bunny cuttings, which we're going to be making into a slow stitch vessel. So stay tuned for that also. So what I start by doing is using my friction marker And I'm just doing it on the front because it will erase, and even if it did leave a faint marking, I don't mind that. You can choose what angle you want to kind of do them at. As I say, I've done them sort of almost straight up on this one. I've done them on this angle on that one, and I've done them on this angle on that one. So I think, and you can kind of look at where your fabric is as well and where you want to kind of tack it down a bit more. But I think maybe this sort of angle feels good to me. And so I'll usually just mark a little bit of a dotted line, or you can draw a full-on line. Again, if you don't like using friction markers, you can use your marking tool of choice, or you could do it on the back as well. But I just find it easier to have it on here. And so I've just, using this little template of a piece of card that I cut just to be the sort of thickness that I wanted my lines to be. I'm then just moving across the piece and marking on where my little lines will need to go. So when you're watching this, you will have noticed I've cut out a little bit of the blanket stitching, so you didn't watch me stitching all the way around, because I just need enough time to kind of show you these additional steps in the process, because I'm also going to show you how I'm then turning it into a little door hanging or a little hanging sort of bunting. So once you've marked your little markings on, get your crochet thread. And we're going to just start it off somewhere. So I've just put a knot in the end of it because it's going to sit on the back, and that doesn't worry me. It all sort of adds, because I'm using quite neutral colours, it works fine. I'm just going to move this out of the way so I don't catch on it when I'm stitching. And then I'm just going to work my way across the piece and do a running stitch. And this is going to be decorative, so it will give that look of being like as though it is a quilted piece. I love that these have started looking like those beautiful pieces that people make where they do actually have vintage quilts that are sort of damaged, and then they cut into little pieces and make them into other things. And I've always admired them, but here in Australia we don't have such a quilt history as in places like the US, where they can buy really old quilts, I think, much more readily. I haven't been to the US. I don't know that that's the case for sure, but from those I've seen that purchase and chatting to people like Melanie from Purveyor of Reclaimed Textiles, it's definitely a lot more readily available to be able to get old damaged sort of quilts that you might then be able to repurpose and use. But I love that this is using just common scraps. Granted, they are probably, a lot of them in my collection are vintage fabrics, but some of them are samples from the reverse art truck, just random scraps from here and there. So once I've done a row, then I just need to travel my needle over to do the next row. So I just kind of pass it, and it does help that I've got this sort of tablecloth fabric on the back, just passing it so it's not coming through to the front. If in the odd spot it just popped up, that wouldn't be the end of the world. And then I can start my next row of running a stitch. Oh, and I did discover the most wonderful place for Travis today. We'd been avoiding going to this particular area which has a market in it, because we'd heard ages ago, probably during COVID times, that someone had baited dogs, like left out baits that dogs ate, and then the dogs got really sick. And so we just had never been there. But I took Travis down today because I was thinking, there must be somewhere he can swim sort of closer to home. We take him to the beach. We take him quite a ways to Warburton, to other places with rivers, for example. And we found this most wonderful reserve that's about 10 minutes from home, if that. By car, granted, not walking. Would be a lot further walking with a Labrador that gets hot. And it has a beautiful river. So I walked down, the reserve looked lovely, and I thought, oh, that looks good. And you can kind of tell sometimes where there might be a river, and you could kind of see that, and it was a really beautiful nature reserve. So the trees were sort of, slanting down. I thought, oh, there has to be a river or a creek or something down there. Anyway, we ran into another black Labrador with their owners, and I noticed, and I was chatting to the owner, and then I noticed that Harry, the black Labrador, was rather sodden, and I said, oh, is the creek near here? And he said, oh, yep, there's a great swimming hole for dogs right down there. And it was not far behind us, and has cut out steps in the stone, so I can go down with Travis. But nice sort of open air-y sort of bank area, like a sandy sort of beach, but not sandy like the beach is, more sort of I guess not mud because it was dry, and then a beautiful water hole where Travis could actually paddle out, and he paddled out and had a great swim around. He was so excited. And then we were able to walk, and so there's a lovely trail. In fact, I probably only did part of the trail today because Travis was getting hot. And yeah, it takes you down past these ovals, and there was a horse or pony sort of demonstration or competition on, so everyone was doing their dressage down there, and Travis was fascinated by the horses. I think he still slightly thinks that they are large dogs that people ride, and it probably doesn't help that I make that joke to him. So yeah, we watched them for a bit, and he was absolutely fascinated. And there's a little art, sort of not modern art, a contemporary art collective that has a little studio in that same reserve that I didn't even know existed. So I'm going to investigate that a bit more and see if they include textile sort of art within their remit, because it might be nice to find a little local artistic community to be part of. I love my friendships on here all around the world, but sometimes I think it might be good for me to branch out into the in-person artistic community as well. So, and something a bit like contemporary, I think sounds probably kind of what I am. Like slow stitch I think is a contemporary form of art, because it's not the traditional really historic embroidery. It's its own new form. I think that's my view anyway. I think we can all have our own views of what slow stitch is and isn't, and that's kind of what slow stitch is. I think it's actually something that you can make your own. Maybe that's my definition of slow stitch. Slow stitch is something that brings meaning to you, and is a form where you are reflective and engaged with your materials and seeing where your stitching wants to take you. What do you reckon about that? And I did obviously by What is Slow Stitch, my first video, in fact the only one I've made for that series. The lovely Sally, she's done lots more videos and I've got lots to catch up on. But yeah, in the first video I was just contemplating on what words I associate with slow stitch. And definitely it is that very peaceful and calm. But I think it is about something where you find what's meaningful to you, and what you see as slow stitch is slow stitch. And I think it comes back to not being judgmental either. I mean, I think that's important for so many things, because creativity only grows where there's freedom to kind of do things and not feel judgment. Or if there is judgment, just ignore it and then follow your own path, is what I say. So that is how I have done the stitching on the sort of the patchwork style stitching. Again, I just don't feel it's focusing that well, but we'll see if that's a bit better. And I just think they look so lovely, and I think that will make a beautiful little brooch. And in fact, actually, now that it's got the stitching across it, I don't think I will even need to do any lazy daisies, because that does just take what was that white. So that was a really good one to kind of demonstrate how well it does actually work, and you can actually see the stitches. Obviously I'll give it I'll probably just give it a hair dry, because that gets rid of the friction marker with a hot hair dry, and then I'll put the little brooch clip on that one, and I think that'll be really sweet to wear anytime, but particularly as a little Easter brooch. So I'll move that one to the side. I've taken my Nana's rickrack and I've made a little loop at the top. Our doors in our house are they have a slidey, like they're a metal bit and a metal rod. If you were putting it round a round knob, you might need to make it a bit bigger of a loop, but for me this will be plenty. And then I just once I'd stitched that little loop, I then put some of these beautiful mother of pearl buttons I've got, but you could use whatever buttons you have. I just love how the vintage mother of pearl buttons go so lovely with the little stitched rabbits. So I'm just going to click again and see if it will focus well with the light. I think it's struggling a bit with the different shades, and probably with the lighting. And so I've decided to do 3 buttons, and then I've just actually run the stitching using the same thread that I'm attaching the buttons on, almost just to make a little, I quite like with this rickrack to add little stitches to it, because it's big enough to kind of be able to have that alternating, contrasting thread colour. And so then I've done another 3 buttons, and then I've done another rabbit, and I'm just at the back just stitching them down in the same way, and then another 3. So we can attach on our 3rd rabbit over here And in terms of the direction, I've got that direction going in the stitching, I've got that, and then this one goes this way, so I thought that was quite nice. So I will thread up with a bit more crochet thread, and I'll just show you how I stitch the rabbit and one button on, and then that way you'll have the sort of the full project without too much tedium, and hopefully I'll be able to edit this video down just to an hour, which I think is a reasonable time to get a lovely little not Christmas, Easter or anytime craft. I'll probably end up leaving this around year end, not year end, all year, because I think it's actually really, really sweet. If we don't have it downstairs, I'll have it in my craft room probably. I do like to just be able to look at these things, and often they'll kind of inspire me to then think, oh, I could use these, because I just think this is going to be such a versatile idea. They'll make lovely embellishments on other slow stitch projects. If you put a pin on the back of them, you could use them as a little clasp on a pouch. So I think I will definitely be making more of my little fabric collage, and then doing more little cutout shapes, probably make some more of those little doggy shapes, which I used for my little Christmas dog, the one that I made for Fleur Wood's dog George, the one I made for Travis, both black Labradors, a black Labrador theme. I was laughing at Annie Claxton. She gave Travis a bit of a disguise. I won't actually say in what context. If you know, you know. But yeah, she gave Travis a disguise. Good job, Annie. He does like to be, Travis is so funny. He doesn't like being on camera or being us taking photos of him. He'll try and turn his head away. It is hilarious. I joke that we have to pay him commission. So what I've been doing is just kind of counting down and having 2 of these little bobbles, and then that's about the point that I then start stitching on my rabbit, and just kind of pick about the midpoint. I think the fact that they're sort of stitched in slightly different places on each of them just adds to the gorgeousness. Let's do another stitch to the top just to make sure it kind of sits nicely. You want it to sit relatively flat against the rickrack and be well enough attached that it's kind of not flopping around. And so again, I'm not coming through to the front when I do these stitches. I'm just keeping my finger behind it and just putting stitches in. Oops, I think we've got a bobbly bit, so I'm going to try and fix that up, yes. Just checking I did have the rabbit the right way round. I think I want them all facing the same way, but again, play around. You could do different objects as well. Like if you wanted a really Easter one, you could have a rabbit, a chicken, an egg. But yeah, I thought the buttons kind of suggested little eggs, but without being super Eastery, because I do want to have this up all the time, I think. So keeping my options open. I think you can have bunnies up year round, especially bunnies this cute. And I love that it's my own little template, so yeah, I don't feel like it's stealing any cry cut or not. What are they? Those cutting machines? Crocodile? No. What are they? I don't have any of them, so I kind of I hear people talking about them. That cut out shapes, which I assume is how Melanie's created those little quilt shapes, or unless she got them, maybe from the US, because I think she does have a brother or something in the US. That's where she gets some of her quilt pieces from. Certainly bought quilts in Australia, but they're much more recent than the ones I've seen folks in the US, and they do tend to be a bit, it's like doilies and everything now, the prices have gone up, but you can periodically. I got a beautiful one for the couch downstairs actually, that's just for, what was that, $40 I think. Really lovely double wedding ring quilt, so that was a good find. So I've got 1, 2, so I'll do a few more stitches down, and then we'll put a button on, and then obviously I'll continue to put 3 buttons at the bottom, and then just sort of I'll probably loop the rickrack under at the end where the final button is, and that will be, or I might even just leave a tail on. Yeah, up to you again when you're doing it, what your preference is. And you might not be using rickrack. As I say, you could use a piece of ribbon, you could use a piece of lace, you could use a piece of, I think something that sits somewhat flat is good, just because it then gives you something to stitch your your rabbit onto. That sounds really cruel, stitching your rabbit. But yeah, I think that does help. And you could also do them double-sided if you wanted, as I think I mentioned it yesterday, and you could even add some more like padding to them if you wanted them to be even a bit more quilty. But I quite happy with that. So yeah, as I say, I'll continue to do 3 buttons down, but I just want to keep this video sort of within good time. So that is my very sweet little rickrack button bunting. And yeah, please do come back for the next video where I will turn this piece into a slow stitch vessel. I hope to see you back for that, and I hope this idea has given you some inspiration too. Thanks everyone.